coming. We had close to 45 people register for this event. So those of you who could join us, we're really appreciative for tonight's session on efficient irrigation and tree care with Frank Niccoli in partnership with the Alameda County Water District and the Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency. Just some housekeeping first. We'll go over a brief history of the Alameda County Water District and BOSCA. Then it'll be the presentation and followed by Q&A. So all attendees are muted by default, but that doesn't mean that you're not encouraged to ask questions. So feel free to raise your hand or type it in the Q&A chat at the bottom. And these webinars are recorded, so they'll be posted to YouTube in a few weeks following the workshop tonight. So just a bit about the Alameda County Water District. I'm a water use efficiency specialist there, and we work hard to make it our mission for us to provide a reliable supply of high quality water at a reasonable price to our customers. We were founded over 100 years ago in 1914, started to protect the Niles Cone groundwater basin, which we still use as one of our supply sources. We have a service area of about 105 square miles that includes Fremont, Newark, and Union City. And that serves about 344,000 customers and 84,000 connections. We have 3 different sources of supply you'll see in the chart there. One of them is the State Water Project. So that we're part of like the State Water Project contractors that buy water from the state, mainly the reservoirs up in Lake Oroville. And our second supply is from SFPUC, or the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. And this water is mainly sourced from Hetch Hetchy and brought over to the Bay and purchased from San Francisco. Then the final source is our local supplies, which is our Alameda Creek watershed runoff. So that Niles Cone groundwater basin that I mentioned, we use wells and pump fresh water out of that and treat it to go into the distribution system, as well as what comes down the Alameda Creek watershed makes up our local supplies. So we're very fortunate to have a wide variety of different supply sources versus just relying on one, especially in drought conditions. Luckily, local conditions have improved, and local and statewide conditions have improved as far as drought. So just last board meeting on April 11th, ACWD voted to rescind our water shortage emergency ordinance. However, Alameda County Water District is still subject to statewide mandates. So the statewide, the state has asked all water agencies to declare a stage 2 in their water shortage contingency plan, which equates to a savings of 15%. So we've rescinded our ordinance, but until the state does away with that stage 2 requirement, we still have to enforce our ordinance until it either expires in June, on June 10th, or they rescind it prematurely, which we're hoping they do so. But obviously conditions have improved, so we're very happy. We still encourage customers to save water, so we offer several programs to get our residential customers to be the most efficient they can be. We offer water conservation kits, so these are free kits that can be shipped directly to your home, customized to the number of bathrooms you have, including shower heads, aerators, dye tablets. This is a really great opportunity if you haven't taken advantage of it already. It's free to customers. One of our hottest programs is our turf replacement program, which gets into a lot of savings. Turf is a very high water using crop, and if you replace it with low water use landscape outdoors, it can really save significant amount of water. So we're offering $2 per square foot right now to replace your lawn. We offer these landscape workshops as well as other seasonal notices, irrigation hardware rebates. So if you're listening to the lecture and getting inspired to maybe do some upgrades to your irrigation system, we do offer various incentives for sprinkler heads and pressure regulators and things like that. And the images at the bottom also show the Braccio Smart Sprinkler Controller, our rain barrel rebate, and this WaterWise online gardening tool, which is a great resource if you're thinking about swapping out any of those plants or turf to water efficient plants. Now, a bit about our partner agency, BOSCA. They represent the agencies that buy water from San Francisco Regional Water System. So if you recall, I mentioned that we buy water from San Francisco as one of our supply sources. So BOSCA is the agency that represents all the agencies that also purchase water from SFPUC. And that's several Bay Area water agencies covering over 1.8 million people and over 40,000 businesses and community organizations in Alameda, Santa Clara, and San Mateo counties. They also have a similar mission or goal, which is to provide high quality of supply of water at a fair price. There's several more upcoming workshops. So tonight you'll be hearing one on efficient irrigation and tree care, but tomorrow there's one on drip irrigation and several other workshops in person and online going all the way out into June. So if you go to bayareaconservation.org, you can register for more of these. Our objective today is really just to highlight that outdoor water use represents the single largest untapped opportunity for water conservation in the Bay Area, and that outdoor water use reduction through the use of water efficient plants and innovative techniques can help conserve water and ensure that future water supply meet the needs of our communities. Just a quick disclaimer that anything that's shared today is not necessarily an exhaustive overview of the subject, and that it does not necessarily reflect any policies or beliefs from the Alameda County Water District or BOSCA or its member agencies. A few announcements this weekend. There is a big Earth Day event at the City of Fremont's downtown event center and plaza. It'll be going from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. ACWD will be there with a booth and tons of free giveaways, but lots of other environmental organizations and education. So it's really a great event put on in our service area. And then next Friday, the 28th, from 4 to 6, we're hosting an event in person for the Fremont Unified School District Gardening Network. And we're gonna have a UC Master Gardener come and speak. So it will be a great, more like a little hands-on event. And if you're interested in RSVPing, you can email nivy@fusdk12.net. We are here for our customers. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the Q&A for me. I'll be monitoring that all night. And we also have our phone number and email there listed. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce our instructor, Frank, who is a very seasoned gardener for over 55 years. He has a degree in horticulture from Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and College of San Mateo in business psychology from USF. He has several professional associations and services, including California Landscape Contractors Associations, Association of Professional Landscape Designers, on which he's part of the board there, and a chairman for the Environmental Sustainability Task Force for the City of Foster City. So ask away, he's a wealth of knowledge. He's received several awards, including the one from the Oprah Winfrey Network. He also is an educator, researcher, writer, poet, and chef. So welcome, Frank, and thank you so much for being here. I'll go ahead and stop sharing. So you can take it away.
I appreciate the introduction. Thank you. Everybody can hear me. Good. Glad to hear that. All right. So tonight we got two subjects. Actually, both subjects could be separate presentations. So I will do the best I can with the time that I have. Just to let you know, I am the director of horticulture at Foothill College. And so if you're interested in taking further classes and educating yourself at a much higher level, look into the horticulture program at Foothill College. All right, I need to have screen sharing, Megan.
Okay, no problem. Okay, try it now.
All right, let's see what happens here. That is going to work. All right, let me find my presentation or part of it. I know it's here somewhere. Ah, here we go. All right. So I'm going to start in the middle of this presentation and talk about the value of urban trees. So urban trees had value. Turf does not. Turf is a lost cause. It's been shown to be a 25-to-1 net loss in terms of environmental impact. And yet I find it amazing that people favor their turf and they let their trees go. In terms of value, trees on a property have asset value. And each tree has true value when it comes to ecosystem services. They sequester carbon, they sequester water, they provide an aesthetic benefit, and they provide a benefit to the property in terms of asset value. You can actually get your trees assessed, and an arborist will assign an asset value to those trees. If you lose a tree, your insurance will actually pay out the cost for that particular tree. So turf, you could try to get that valued, but I don't think that anyone, well, Megan will pay you 2 for 1. I think the water agency is the only one that will pay out for removing turf. So anyway, annual benefits about $129 with annual costs of $28. The annual net benefit is $101 for a large tree. Over 40 years, 100 large public trees, the benefits would be $516,000, with costs being $113,400. So the 40-year net benefit of a large tree, or 100 of these large trees, is right around $500,000. So you need to look at your trees in a different light when it comes to value, and you need to discourage your turf. Let's see, here we go. So the drought of 76, 77 taught us a whole bunch of different things. One of the things that it taught us is that the state of California wrote a very large review, and I'm talking in feet here. The review was actually about 1.5 feet thick book. And of course, did they do anything with that? Not much, but they did do the review. In that particular drought, we lost about 7.7 million trees, which equates to about 3,465,000,000 pounds of carbon that was added to the atmosphere. So that was significant. In this last drought, we are hitting right around the 2 billion tree mark. We're starting to look a lot like a desert. And of course, the New York Times did an article on the desertification of California, and it seems that's where we're headed. this lushness is not going to be around too much. So this is the value in terms of ecosystem services of those trees. So each tree was valued at about $200. When we talk about ecosystem services, it's if I had to supply you with the same service that the tree supplies you with, we'd be looking at $1 billion worth of ecosystem services for these 7.7 million trees. If we looked at the value for the 2 billion trees that we lost in the last drought, it would be significantly higher. And by the way, that number is going to go up. I'll talk to you about what that is. Don't care about this, don't care about that, but we do care about the last two. So insects were the primary responsible for most of the deaths of the trees in 76, 77, and now. And some of the diseases were primarily dwarf mistletoe and some of the root diseases. Fire ate a lot of them. The large fires after the 77 drought devastated. But this is the reason that I want to talk about turf versus trees. So turf, you need inputs. You need water, you need to cut the stuff, you need fertilizer, which is a synthetic, which is petroleum essentially. And you need to care for them. In terms of the trees, you need to understand that there's going to be some expectations. And when we talk about expectations, it's not linear, it's reality. So one of the expectations that's going to happen is that many people thought that during a drought that they shouldn't water their trees. The California natives and a lot of our native trees rely on water during the wet months. If they do not get water, they decline. And they decline in a number of different ways. The oaks, for example, are subject to stress. And once they begin to stress, they begin to show evidence of Armillaria malea, oak root fungus, and that will weaken the tree. Insects sense a weakened tree. Ambrosia beetles are the big ones. They come in, attack that particular tree, and take it out. A mature oak tree has an asset value of anywhere from $25,000 to $100,000 on a property. A lawn has an asset value of about 35 cents when you compare it to the asset value of an oak tree. The other thing that happens with a drought is about 2 years after a drought ends, we see a significant decline in, of course, oaks, but the other one is maple trees. Maple trees show an increased incidence of verticillium wilt, and verticillium wilt is not curable. You can hold it off for a while with a few tricks of the trade, but it is not curable. So those of you who watered your trees during the drought should be fine. Those of you who didn't should start facing some reality here that there is a good chance you're going to lose these trees. I'm not talking about fruit trees because the value of those fruit trees in terms of real dollars is not anything in comparison to our larger trees. So I'm not going to really talk about those. Those are different. You can't put an asset value on a fruit tree. Of course, they give you fruit. I understand that. And managing those during a drought is relatively simple in comparison to oaks and maples. The other trees that have had a major issue because of drought have been redwoods. The redwoods are declining at a very high rate. We saw a significant decline in redwoods in the past 7 years, and it's primarily due to to drought. The redwoods that are left are weakened. So if in fact you do have redwoods on your property, it's time to reevaluate or evaluate your method of managing these particular trees. So what to expect? Well, we expect a significant increase in mistletoe. We're seeing that all over the place now. A lot of people see this and they think, oh, how cute, squirrel's nest. No. Mistletoe absorbs both water and mineral nutrients from its host trees, and healthy trees can tolerate a few mistletoe branch infections. This is mistletoe here that's growing behind this branch on this particular tree. Heavily infested trees can be reduced in vigor. They can become stunted and even killed, especially if they're attacked by another stressor like an insect. If you do happen to have incidents of mistletoe, you need to get somebody in there to cut that mistletoe out, and then you get to wrap this black plastic around it so that the mistletoe does not regrow. So you need to put a few layers of this wide black polyethylene to keep the light out so that the mistletoe does not regrow. When we look at trees, there's three basic types. There's resistance, susceptible, and tolerant. Resistance and to insects and diseases in trees means that the tree is fairly bulletproof. A susceptible tree is one that is susceptible to a number of different types of insect and disease pathogens. A tolerant tree is one that can tolerate insect and disease pathogen attacks. So you take certain trees like conifers. Conifers are susceptible to pine bark beetles and pine pitch canker, your pines specifically. So they're susceptible. They're nowhere near resistance. There are certain pines that are tolerant, but for the most part, pines are more susceptible than anything else. So what's the numbers? Mistletoe in 1976-77, in combination with the insects, killed 51% of the trees. Root diseases in combination with mistletoe killed 20%. Root diseases with insects, around 4%. Diseases alone, around 14%. Insects, no injuries to the tree, about 13%. Insects plus injury, about 4%. So you need to keep your trees healthy. When I say keeping your trees healthy, that also means that you prune a tree at its proper time of the year. If you prune a pine tree when sap is running, the insects think that the tree is stressed and has a major disease or is stressed and will attack it. The wrong time of the year for pine trees is warm weather. The only time you prune pine trees is in the wintertime, December, January, when they are not running sap. Certain trees are stressed if they're pruned at the wrong time of the year. That includes oaks, redwoods, and some of the larger trees that we see in this particular area. So managing your trees means that if nature is not supplying the rain, you are supplying the rain. And you should look up the characteristics of your particular tree and find out how much water each of these trees need to sustain themselves. An oak tree, for example, has about 5 years of reserves, and those are in the form of carbohydrates, which means that if we go beyond a 5-year drought, and we did, as some people say we're 8 years into the drought, some say 9, some people say we're still in the drought. There are those who believe that we have not really come out of this drought. The plants and the trees certainly don't think we've come out of this drought. So that's my take on trees. I don't know if anybody has any questions, concerns, problems, or issues about this, but you need to watch your trees right now for specifically insect infestations are going to be a definite indicator that you've got some problems. Look at the tops of the trees, see if the tops are drying out. What's the overall look of the tree? Do we have some end branching dying out? What's going on with the thing? So make sure you check your trees. If you are uncertain, get a qualified arborist. And there are so many quacks out there. Get somebody that really knows what they're doing. You don't want somebody messing with $100,000 tree. It's like buying a Mercedes and getting a shade tree mechanic to work on it. It doesn't quite work that way. So get somebody that knows what they're doing and have them check your tree. Okay, I want to talk about irrigation now and what irrigation is all about. I am very partial to this company. And I will tell you why. Oh, first of all, let me make one comment about irrigation. And that is, stay away from the big box stores. They sell garbage. They make their money on repeat business. Contractors do not buy their material at big box because contractors hate callbacks. And so you want quality. By far and away, Hunter Industries is the leader in quality in the industry. Their products, bar none, are the best by far and away. I'll give you an example. I put my landscape in my house in 1991, and I used all Hunter materials. I replaced my valves last year. So you do the math. From 1991 to now, I replaced 9 valves in all of that time. I never had a valve fail, but I started to see evidence that my valves were declining. And so that's when I decided to replace them. By far and away, the best clock is the HydroWise system. By leaps and bounds. This thing is so accurate and so right on in terms of its watering capabilities. You install a HydroWise controller and you calibrate it to your property, I guarantee you that your savings will be a minimum of 39% and can be up to 79% of water savings. So I hit 79% water savings when I switched to a HydroWise. And trust me, the manufacturers, when I was a contractor, gave me free controllers. I tested them all. This was the best by far and away. So if you're looking for a decent controller, get a HydroWise. The reason that I like them is that they do connect to the internet and they do control your irrigation system based on weather data. And they pick that weather data up through a Wi-Fi enabled link. My house, for example, is picking up weather data 2 blocks away from my house. So that weather data is true. Not all companies can do that, but Hunter is invested and they are true to the mission of being able to provide a controller that is managing your water system correctly. Contractors love this thing because they can sit in their office and manage 80 to 120 controllers from their own computer. And you can do this with your phone. I could be in the Caribbean and I can go to my phone and I can see exactly what my system is doing. Did it water today? How much did it water? Was there a change in the watering schedule? It also troubleshoots my system in terms of my valves. Is there a problem with a valve? I've also installed a water meter on my property that connects to this. If I do have a broken irrigation line or a broken head, this thing automatically alarms me. Hey, bud, you got a problem out there. You need to fix it. It reads the amount of water for each individual station, and it learns that amount of water. And if it goes over that amount, it automatically shuts that station down, shoots me an alarm, and then goes to the next station and irrigates that. Each time it comes on, this particular controller reads my solenoid, how much amps my solenoid is drawing. If in fact my solenoid is beginning to go out and it starts pulling 1.5 amps, when in reality it should only have a startup of about 0.5 amps, it'll send me another alarm. I can go to this controller and I can see my watering schedule, exactly how much water it put down, and calibrate it if I want less or more. If I walk outside, I happen to see a station that's not watering, either watering too much or too little, I can make a manual adjustment to the program on this and change it. So by far and away, this is the best controller on the market. What are you going to pay for this? Well, like anything else, the cost is not the short-term cost, it is the long-term cost. If you look at water costs are not going down, ever. Even though we're coming out of the drought, all of those increases that you saw, and I'll give you an example, Menlo Park increased their water rates 120% over this last drought. You're not going to get that back. So water costs are going up. If anybody ever saw the movie The Big Short, the guy that shorted the housing market lives in San Jose, and guess what he is investing in? Water. Because he knows that there is a marketplace in water. So when we talk about irrigation system, there's a couple of ways to go. If you have a conventional irrigation system that is using pop-up heads, and you want to convert it to a water-saving irrigation system, all you have to do is change the nozzles. And I know that sounds simplistic and easy, but most of the nozzles out there are a 1.75 gallons per minute precipitation rate. The MP rotator is 0.4, which means that it puts water down in a much slower manner, allows it to percolate into our soils instead of running off, and will save you water. They say up to 30%. I say it's a little more than that. So this is the best irrigation nozzle on the market, bar none. And I highly recommend that if you're doing a pop-up system, these are expensive. I'm not going to tell you that these are cheap. They're $5.17 a nozzle, whereas the other cheapy things are about $1.50. But you're looking for long-term savings. So one of the quickest ways to do that is change your nozzles. These are adjustable. You can get them in many different configurations. I want to look at models. You can get them in a 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and 3,500, 10-foot, 20-foot, 30-foot radius, and this one is a 35-foot radius. And then you have your specialty heads here. Left corners, right corners, side strips, corners, and then of course you can get a male threaded or female threaded to fit just any irrigation system that's out there. So they talk about the radiuses. of these particular heads. They do their best when they're working under 40 PSI. Specifications, you can get a spec list if you like it. Overview, this is by far and away a revolutionary piece of equipment. It is astounding how much this water saving device works. It's amazing. Contractors rely on this thing to irrigate. Drip systems. So the one thing that I tell you about drip system is throw that 1/4-inch hose out. That stuff is crap. It's garbage. Throw it out. If you've got 1/4-inch point source in your yard, get it out of there and put in what the professionals use. I'm going to show you two types. I'm going to show you the Hunter type as soon as I find it. And then I'm going to show you the one that I use, which I like. Well, let me talk about valves first. So valves are the heart of your system. You want a good valve. As I said, I put my valves in 1991, and I just changed them last year. So what are we talking about? 32 years for a valve? I say I got my money's worth. There's a couple of ways you can go with valves. So the PGV is a good valve, as well as the ICV. I prefer the ICV. It's a much more robust valve. It is in ground. If you have above ground valves, those break down because they usually do not have a UV resistant plastic on them. And we have that big yellow thing in the sky that emits UV radiation, and it will break those valves down. So they will not last 32 years like my valves did. You want them to go in the ground. The different valves have different specifications, different specifications. And you want to read these specifications because it's not the turn on part, it is the turn off part that is worrisome. If in fact you're using a drip system, you need 0.1 to 40 gallons a minute to shut that valve off. It'll turn on, but it won't go off, especially if you're using cheap valves. And usually that valve sticks on the day after you go on a 3-week cruise to the Caribbean. And so you come back and it's been on for 24 hours for 3 weeks. And I have had clients that have called me and asked me what happened to their valve system. And we found that they had cheap valves in there and they stuck on because they couldn't turn off. So you want a good, robust valve. Don't cheap out on a valve. It's the heart of your system. And as I said, it's not the turn on part, it's the turn off part that you need to think about. In terms of the turn off part with the drip systems, I am looking for something specific. Let me look up drip valves. Come on, Hunter, give it to me, please. Here we go. So Hunter has produced what is called a drip control zone kit. If you're in fact thinking about going to a drip system, and I'm going to talk about some different ways that you could do that. Again, the heart of the system is your valve. Hunter makes it easy because they will give you the valve, the filter, which is 150 micron mesh filter, and a pressure reducer. You need to add a pressure reducer to a drip system. It's a consistent 25 to 40 PSI, depending on how large that drip system is on your property. This particular model is specific 2 drip systems with operating flows of 0.5 to 15 gallons per minute, which means that you're running at 30 to 900 gallons per hour. Drip systems run in gallons per hour. Spray heads run in gallons per minute. And so when we talk about this thing, we want it to be able to shut down with very low flow. 150 mesh, which is 100 micron stainless steel screen. It's a great filter. This system is specific to installing drip systems. Do not cheap out on this. If you get a pressure reducer and a filter from big box, it'll clog. Not if it will clog, it will clog. It's cheap, it's garbage. They want you to come back and buy more from them. And they rely on repeat business. Contractors hate callbacks. And so they're gonna throw a valve in there that is in great shape. So that is the drip control zone kits with Hunter. Outstanding product. So Hunter is also in the drip business, and they offer a number of different solutions for drip. And their drip systems are a little bit different, and they offer this what they call HDL and PLD drip, and these systems are professional grade. They are 17 mil or ½ inch. You don't want to use anything less than 17 mil. If you use 12 mil, it will clog, and will clog, not if, it will clog. And Hunter does offer a 12 mil. I don't know why. I wouldn't buy it. 17 mil is what you want. You can get it in flow rates of 0.4, 0.6, and 0.9 gallons per hour. And remember, we're talking in gallons per hour. And you can get it in a number of different configurations. You can get the emitter spacing at 12, 18, and 24. So if I'm growing zucchini, I'm at 18. If I'm growing greens, I'm at 12. What's my soil like? Am I on clay, sand, sandy loam? What's my soil like? That's the determining factor for these flow rates. If I'm using sand, if I'm on sandy soil, then I'm going to be using 0.9. If I'm on clay, I'm going to be at 0.6 or 0.4. You can get coil lengths of 100 up to 1,000 feet. When you determine how much you can put on a system, it's real simple to figure out how much water you got. Take a 5-gallon bucket and take a tape measure and measure that 5-gallon bucket. And it will usually measure about 14 inches. Divide the 14 inches by 5 and make a mark at what you get. So it's about every 2.56 inches. So every 2.5 inches, make a mark. Take that bucket and put it under a hose bib. Turn on the hose bib and count 15 seconds. And that gives you the amount of water that you have coming into your house over a 15-second period. Multiply that by 4. That's your gallons per minute coming into your house. So let's say I turn on this system and it gives me 2 gallons in 15 seconds. I multiply that by 4. I've got 8 gallons per minute coming into my house. How much Netafim or how much drip could I put in there? Well, if I'm using the 0.9, let's just use that as an example because it's easy for me to do the math. How many gallons per hour do I have coming in? Well, I've got 8 per minute. Multiply that by 60 minutes. I have 480 gallons that I can use. So if I'm using a 0.9 every 12 inches, with an emitter spacing of every 12 inches, I can put 480 feet out there, no problem, and not run out of water. So it's easy to calibrate and figure out how much water you're actually using on these systems, and it's easy to calibrate. One, I do like the Hunter system. They do something called Eco Wrap, and they put this coil around it, and it is a fleece wrap. It keeps debris and root intrusion out of the drip. It's a good product, and works quite well. I bury it about 2 inches underground, or I lay it on the surface and put mulch over the top of it. The fleece lining has a life span of about 25 years, so it's not going to wear out in any time soon. When you buy these products, there's 2 different kinds of fittings that you can get. You can get the PLD fittings, or you can get the lock fittings. This is PLD lock. These are the barbed. The better of the fittings are the locks. The barbed fittings will work, but now and again, if you get a pressure spike on your system, it'll blow the fitting off. Not with a lock. These locks lock onto that drip hose. So you want to get the lock. The price difference between them is like a nickel per fitting. Not worth it to get a lesser fitting. The Eco Wrap, they also make an Eco Wrap that is quite interesting. We did experimentations down in San Jose at the demonstration garden at Guadalupe. And we dug out a garden and we put this Eco Wrap down. It went down 12 inches under the surface. And then we put the soil back on top and then planted turf. This is a extremely efficient way to irrigate turf. The emitters themselves fill up this fleece wrap, and the root systems grow down into the fleece wrap and pick up their water that way. So it's very efficient. You can get it in different flow rates. It does have a non-draining check valve in it, and it does have warranties on it. So 5-year warranty is more than enough. It is labor intensive because you have to remove all the soil and then you lay it down. This system is really good for green roofs and for under small turf areas, shrub areas, ground cover areas. This should be done at not on a remodel of a landscape, but when a new landscape is going in. This is a really good product. I like this product a lot. I'm trying to get them to put this product on the roofs at Foothill College. Multi-port emitters, don't buy them. Point source, don't buy them. They're garbage. They clog. Squirrels eat them. High risers, don't buy them. MLD, don't buy them. Let's see what we have here. Oh, distribution tubing. So distribution tubing is just tubing that does not have emitters in it. This is 1/4 inch. Don't buy the 1/4 inch. Get the 1/2 inch, 17 mil. They say 1/2 inch, but it's really 17 mil. So this is your supply tubing. Don't buy anything 1/4 inch because it doesn't work. It's the same as this garbage with this multiple port emitters. I would never use it. And the plants hate this stuff. So you're putting a emitter on one side of the plant. Well, you know, the root system is all around that plant. It's not on one side. So you're causing the roots to die on the other parts of the plant, which causes the plant to go into stress. If the plant goes into stress, it will get attacked by insects and diseases. Eco indicator, yeah, sure. If you want to buy a bell or a whistle now and again, you can do that, but I don't buy them. Air vacuum relief valves, I don't buy them. Don't need it. Micro sprays, I don't buy them. Rigid risers, I don't buy them. These things clog, squirrels chew on them, kids kick them, animals in the garden eat them. So I just don't buy them, but I do buy HDLs and PLD lock fittings. And these are the ones you want, 16 to 18 mil. These are outstanding. The PLD fitting is a 17 mil, and this will blow off if you get a pressure spike on your system. So that's my commercial on Hunter. Let's see, where are we with time? Oh yeah, I'm in good shape. What time do I go to? Like 8 o'clock or something? Is that what I go to?
Yeah, 8 o'clock.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so I mentioned don't buy at the big box stores. Where do I buy? Site One. I love Site One. They are friendly. They'll help you. And I'll give you some tips about going to a place where contractors go. If you go to these places at 7 in the morning, they will ignore you because you're a homeowner and you look like a homeowner and they don't make a huge amount of money on you. A contractor is who they're dealing with, and contractors are there at 7 in the morning trying to get material to get to a job site so they can make their money. So when I was a contractor, I was giving these landscape houses 10 to 20,000 a month. When Frank walked in, he got the donuts, he got the coffee, he got Regal treatment, and the homeowners got ignored. So that's just the way it is. Go at 9:30. Contractors are gone. They're on the project. You might get a trickle of 1 or 2 in there, but they're on the project trying to get a product in the ground. Don't go at noon. A lot of these houses have hot dogs and pizza for the contractors at noon because they're trying to attract them to come in. So a lot of contractors, oh, free lunch? Sure, I'm there. And so they'll go and they'll get their next round of stuff that they need to get into the ground around noon. Don't go at noon. Go at 1:30 and they'll help you. Don't go at 4 o'clock because the contractors are there trying to get their stuff for tomorrow morning. So a lot of these places close at 6. So go around 5 and they will help you. These places are outstanding. They have quality material. There's no garbage here because these places rely on contractors' businesses to survive. And if a contractor gets an inferior product, they're coming back and they're saying, what's going on, bub? What is this garbage you're selling me? You can't do that at big box because they'll ignore you. I mean, they ignore you anyway, much more than these places ignore you as a homeowner. Those of you who shop at big box, just stop it and go to where the contractors go. You're going to get a much better product that's going to last a lot longer. And it really depends on how many times you want to install your system. If you want to install your system once every 3 or 4 years, yeah, okay, go to big box. If you want to install it once and have it last for 32 years, like my system, then get the good stuff. It will pay off in the long run. Yeah, okay, you got to write a big check up front, but it will pay off in the long run. So in terms of Site One in the East Bay, they're in Hayward, they're in San Leandro, 2 stores there. They're in Dublin, 2 stores there. They're in San Jose, Concord, Pacheco. So they're all over the place. They're open early. This one's open at 6:30 because they know the contractors are going to be there. This one's open at 6:30. They not only sell irrigation equipment, pipes, tubing, controllers, whatever, valves, but they also sell consumables, mulch, straw, soil amendment, soil, stormwater stuff, erosion control stuff, sod if you're crazy enough to put in sod, tools, ooh, good tools, injection systems if you want to go that way, landscape lighting, they got it. Some trees and succulents, not a lot, but they're gearing up to do that. Safety stuff, high-vis clothing, respirator, head and face protection, whatever you want. Good quality hoses. Don't buy your hoses at the big box stores. They're garbage. You want a hose that's going to give you 20 years. You're not going to get that at big box. The other cool thing too is their power equipment. So they have changed to a battery type power equipment. The Makita is a great product. Their blower is outstanding. Their brushless blower works. Prices are reasonable. You want long-lasting stuff, and they have great tools. So you want to get the commercial stuff. This is where the contractors get their stuff. So you want to get the same materials that the contractors are using because they buy to last. So you can get good tools, sprayers, spreaders, renovation equipment, specialty equipment, all of that stuff is at Site One. I don't get a kickback from these guys. I give them their due because these guys took care of me when I was a contractor, and they continue to take care of me as a director of a horticulture program. They donate their time and equipment to my college. So I owe these guys a debt. They are very good in terms of getting the good stuff. And that's what you want. Okay, we're going to talk about the system that I use in terms of drip. I use Netafim. Netafim is one of the best products that ever came out for drip. Again, you can get this in 12 mil and 17 mil. Get the 17 mil. 12 mil, it just doesn't work for me. It clogs. I don't like it. So get the good stuff and get 17 mil. So Netafim was founded by farmers and agronomists to grow in the desert. And the system is by far and away the best drip system out there. If you talk to the hunter representatives, they'll say that their system is just as good. And that may or may not be true. I just know that I've been using Netafim for many, many years, and I have had very little problems with this thing. The technology is there. It is easy to calibrate. It's easy to install. It's worry-free. The representatives will help you if you call them and you have problems, as well as Hunter. The one good thing about Hunter and Netafim is they answer their phones. A lot of companies do not answer their phones, and that's why I don't support their product. I don't support Toro or Rainbird for that very reason. They don't answer their phones, and they didn't help me when I was a contractor. So Hunter and Netafim did. If I got a problem with a product, I want to talk to a rep, and I want to get it fixed. And these guys will help you. Homeowners too, they welcome homeowners. Hunter does, as well as Netafim. So Netafim is Tinker Toys. And you can do all types of layouts with it. You can do this kind of a layout, real simple. If you have an existing irrigation system, like a pop-up system, and you want to change it to a Netafim system, all you have to do is go in there and cap off all but one of those pop-up heads and use that one as a point of connection, drop a riser down into that socket, put some drip filter and a pressure reducer on there, and you're ready for drip. You can configure this thing any way you want. In terms of layout, to get the best coverage, whether you're using it for ground cover, veggie beds, in containers, the distance between these two hoses is 14 inches. That's the sweet spot. If you have these things 14 inches and you give it enough time, these circles of water will converge and you will get a very even coverage of water on your system. You'll also notice that this isn't point source. So you're not putting a 1/4 inch emitter on one side of the plant. You're covering all sides of the plant. These circles converge and they water the entire root ball of your plant, which gives it good, even coverage and is very healthy for your root systems. There's a number of different ways that you can configure these systems. Yeah, you could put it in a master valve. Nobody ever does, but you could if you want. Here's a typical layout using a pipe system. You can do this if you want. It's pretty easy to develop a manifold like this. Here's your valve systems over on this one side, on the left side, with a filter, and then of course a pressure reducer. And then they attached it to some PVC pipe, usually 3/4 inch. They put a barbed fitting in here, and then they laid these out at 14 inches across. You can go through the expense. Many people will just take distribution tubing, which is Netafim without emitters, and lay that in here as it's instead of the PVC pipe. It makes it easier. You can also get what are called staples. And I recommend getting sod staples to hold these down until the piping loses its memory. So when you get it coiled up into a round ball or a round coil, it has memory. And so when you lay this out, you just lay some sod staples on it to hold it in place. You can go through the trouble of doing these manifolds out of PVC, but I don't recommend it. I say go all Netafim like this. Here's your distribution tubing here. Or if in fact you are growing plants on this side, use your drip emitter line and call it a day. You can see the staples and how they're holding this down. You can buy a manual flush valve if you like. I never put one on my systems. It's easy for me to open up one of the legs of the system and flush it out. I clean my filters every quarter, so I do it on the solstice. So March 21st, June 21st, September 21st, and December 21st is when I clean my filters. So I do that on a regular basis. The water we get in our area has a lot of particulate matter in it, rust, dead bugs, whatever. And this filter catches all that so that it doesn't get into your drip system. Lots of different configurations. The hose that I recommend is Techline. And we'll be looking at Techline in just a minute and how you can use that. You can do subsurface, 2 to 4 inches. You can contour. You can do lateral placement using these fittings. You can center feed it if you like. You can end feed it. It's however way you want to set this system up. It is almost bulletproof no matter which way you do it. Here's a typical layout for a tree ring. And they use a double line. The cool thing about this, as this tree grows and as the root system expands, all you do is cut in here and put another ring in. Makes it so simple. Depending on the type of tree, will determine how many emitters in a circular fashion you're putting around that particular tree. A redwood tree does not like drip, no matter what. It likes more water than that. So certain trees do not work no matter how much drip you put around them. If you've got fruit trees, this is an excellent way to manage fruit trees. It's easy to do. As the fruit tree gets bigger, all you're doing is putting another line in. Real simple. And you don't have to do it as fancy as this guy's done it. You can just do rings and not use all these fittings. Just use a ring. When you're buying the tech line, it can flow. Where's the flow rates? I don't want this one. I am looking at, oh, here we go. This is what I'm looking at. Precipitation rates. Coarse sandy soil. You need to know what kind of soil that you have. And those of you who don't know what kind of soil you have, it's real easy to do a soil texture analysis. Get a jar, fill it halfway up with soil that you have in your yard. Put 2 tablespoons of dishwashing detergent in there. Fill it up almost to the top with water and shake it. Shake it for about 2 minutes and then set it down. The different soil texture types will settle out. Sand, silt, and clay. Sand will drop to the bottom. Silt will be in the middle. Clay will be on top. Once they settle out, measure the amount of soil that is in the jar, the soil, not the soil in the water. And then measure each of the particulates, sand, silt, and clay, and figure out the percentage based on your total amount of soil. So if you live in Menlo Park near Sand Hill Road, well, duh, what kind of soil is it? Sand. That's why they call it Sand Hill Road. If you're down in Palo Alto, you're probably got a clay soil. And so the types of precipitation rates are going to change based on your soil. Sandy soil, water runs through it quickly. And so you're going to be using higher precipitation rates. Clay soils, lower precipitation rates. Are you on a slope? Is the slope covered or bare? What's the slope? And it'll tell you which ones that you can use. Here's how you irrigate a slope or a berm. Not rocket science. You're just laying these things over a berm on the contour, and again, 14 inches apart. And this thing will adequately irrigate a slope. Emitter flows. Clay, 0.33 gallons per hour. Loam, 0.53. Sandy coarse soils, 0.77. Or you can go up into the higher rates with some of this is Techline copper. If you're using Techline CV, which is the one that I use, it has 4 different configurations. Clay, 0.26. Loam, 0.42. Sandy soils, 0.61. Coarse, rocky, sandy soils, 0.92. Your spacing, 18, 12, 12, is going to depend on crop. If I'm doing leafy greens, I'm going to be using a 12-inch spacing. So it really is going to be depending on crop. So look at these particular charts. This is turf. I've never put in Techline on turf. I never will. But I used it extensively on shrubs, ground covers, and of course my veggie gardens and around my fruit trees. I use this product exclusively. And so you pick the one that's going to fit your type of soil. Pretty easy. Techline copper, all it has is a piece of copper to keep root intrusion at a lower level. I've never had a problem with Techline CV with root intrusion. This is Techline copper. And then here is your tech line. Where's CV? It should be coming up here. Here's CV. You can get it enhanced with copper for long-lasting protection, but it's not necessary. The tech line CV is a great product and works very well. It does have a check valve in it. The cool thing about the Netafim system is the emitter. And I am looking for that and I don't see it. So I am going to call it up on the internet because I want to show you what this emitter looks like. I got everything but. Put in tech line. Yeah, here we go. I think this might be a better one. So the emitter has these chambers. As water comes through this emitter, it causes the water to spin. And when it spins, it kicks the particulate matter that might have gotten by the filter to the outside, and it takes it to the end. So your emitter looks like this, and you get this tiny spot of water that comes out of the center of the emitter, but that water is spinning in here so that all the particulate matter goes to the outside. This is what it looks like. There's a particular kind of a flow path. This is a very innovative way to move water without clogging your emitters. This stuff never clogs. I've never had a clog with tech line. So back to these charts. You want to drop your PSI rating down to 30 PSI, and you do that with a pressure reducer. And it'll tell you how many feet of this stuff that you can use, depending on your flow and the amount of water that you have. So it's not hard to figure it out. And Netafim does provide a lot of information on their website about the different types of hose, but I highly recommend the CV. I think that's what this is. This is copper. Where is Techline CV? HC. Here we go. Techline CV. This by far and away is more than adequate for most properties. It works. It's reasonably priced. You can get it in 100-foot coils, 250s, 500s, and 1000s. Obviously, the larger coils will cost less money. In the long run, per foot. So if you're going to be doing a large installation on your property, then get 1,000 feet. You'll use it. I started my house on Techline CV, and I bought 1,000. I probably have about 50 feet left over. I have 5 different zones on Netafim right now. I have my 2 vegetable gardens. I have 2 in my backyard, and then 1 area on my side yard that's all drip line. So I have 5 different stations that are using drip line. So that being said, are there questions, concerns, problems, issues?
Yeah, don't be shy. Feel free to either put your questions in the chat or, Q&A, or just raise your hand. Yeah, thank you, Frank. That was like a crash course on everything irrigation. I can start the questions off. I was just curious because you're talking about drought and like historical irrigation techniques. Is there anything that you would recommend for like future ready irrigation system hacks that would withstand like the changing climate as things change in the next couple years?
It's the controller technology that is changing, and Hunter by far and away is ahead of the pack. They're Wi-Fi enabled, and you can also get a Cat 5 cable to them if you want to plug directly into Cat 5. They also have cornered the market on weather stations. So the controller is no good unless you have good weather stations. If I've got a controller that's using a weather station that's 100 miles away, it's not going to do me any good on my irrigation system. But as I said, with my controller, the weather station that they pick up is 2 blocks from my house. And if you call Hunter, they'll give you a list of all the weather stations. They've blanketed California with weather stations. They're amazing. And they're the only one that have that kind of a network. Fantastic the way they do it. And I also did one other thing. I got another sensor and I put it on my HydroWise. So that sensor sits on the south side of my garden. And that causes that HydroWise system to be even more accurate because it's taking a reading in my garden. So I've upped the ante and gotten another 5 to 10% water savings by doing that. So the technology is changing, and you want a company that's going to change with that technology. I know you guys recommend the ratios. I had nothing but problems with ratios. They were overwatering. And so I was pulling ratios out like crazy. And don't get me wrong, there's guys that love the ratio system. I don't. I had nothing but problems with it. And I couldn't get a ratio to call me. So they wouldn't support me. So, bye-bye.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've heard nothing but good feedback, so I'll have to take that into consideration. I feel like, your suggestion on really localized weather control is spot on, just because California has so many different microclimates that as we're all impacted in different areas with rising temperatures, that's a great suggestion. So kind of tailoring your irrigation to the weather data.
Even in your own neighborhood, you've got all these little microclimates, depending on how your house is oriented, or your garden is oriented. And so you need to calibrate those controllers. It'll take you about 3 months to get a smart controller calibrated. If you do get a smart controller, just don't throw it in there and think it's smart. It's dumb. It's dumb as a rock. And you need to calibrate it. So you calibrated it according to your garden. You set it up, and then you go out and see how much water is being applied to each individual zone. And then you adjust the controller up and down according to whether it's too wet or too dry. And that's how you calibrate these systems. With my HydroWise, it took me about 3 months to get it calibrated to my property. So don't just think that these things are smart and they'll do it automatically, because they won't.
Right. It does take some operation.
Does take
Thank
some
you. Well, we have a question from the audience. So the question is, where can we find the specifics in what you talked about, i.e. brand type, size, dimensions? Do you have any examples of your yard?
I don't have examples of my yard. In terms of the materials, go to the Hunter websites and look at the Hunter websites. Go to the Netafim websites and look at their products, and then go down to Site One and just talk to them. They'll help you. They know the good brands. They're going to help you get a good Hunter controller or good drip systems. They sell Netafim like crazy. They have rolls and rolls of that stuff in the back, and all the Tinker Toy fittings that you'll ever need. So use the resources that I gave you with Site One, the Netafim website, and the website for Hunter Industries. And if you have additional questions, there are 2 Hunter representatives that are in this area. If you call their support line, they'll get a message to the Hunter reps and they will call you back. not might. They will call you back. They're very good about that.
Yeah, and just to add on, we will have this recorded and posted to YouTube if there's something you just missed or want repeated. And something that's really cool that ACWD is rolling out is our smart meters, the automated metering infrastructure. So if you were to have one of those valves not closed properly, like Frank was describing, depending on, the volume, it can pick up very small amounts of continuous flow. We don't consider it a leak. It's mainly if water is flowing continuously, because at some point your home or business should have zero water use. Say you're out of town, sleeping, no one's home. Things that are running, maybe you might know of, like ice makers or set irrigation times, won't trigger the continuous flow, but it's a tool that we're implementing in all of the service areas. So if you haven't received an AMI meter, you should in the next few years. And that provides some leak alerts that are built in, especially because irrigation, it's underground, oftentimes hidden, so you don't know if you have a leak. So if you always want to check for them by doing routine maintenance on your sprinkler systems, but also that's an added tool for your benefit.
Yeah, spring startup is right now with irrigation systems. All the professionals are out checking irrigation right now because they know that in 3 weeks it's going to hit 90 degrees. You just watch, it's going to do it.
Yeah, especially post drought, right? Like less restrictions coming. So if there's any other questions, please either raise your hand or type it into the Q&A. I want to get back to something you mentioned about tree care, because it can be really tricky to maintain your tree health. Say you have an oak that's well established, or that you may not irrigate, but then it's not getting any natural precipitation. Is there some hacks you recommend for that? Is it just physically manually watering, or
once a week,
solution?
water that thing deep, water it deep, because it's looking for irrigation, especially in the wintertime. You never water oaks in the summertime because it increases the incidence of Armillaria millia. The heat in combination with the water will cause an increase in the fungus, but oaks rely on that water. You can always tell whether an oak is healthy is if it gets attacked by tussock moths and survives that. And don't spray those guys. They're there for a reason. Birds eat them. Baby birds rely, 74% of most bird species rely on caterpillars for their survival. And we're seeing a decline in bird populations because everybody thinks that they have to spray for these caterpillars out there. Nah, you got birds, they'll eat them. Let them eat them.
Thank you. We have another question from the audience. We have a giant magnolia. How much water per month should I give it? I have a drip hose around the canopy.
Not enough water. Those things are water. They love water. 80 to 120 gallons in a day on a hot day. They will take drip better than a redwood, but they need lots and lots of water to stay healthy. Especially older magnolias, they're susceptible to decline as they get older. But a magnolia loves a lot of water, especially the evergreen magnolia, grandiflora. Soulangeana, the deciduous, is not as heavy of a water user as grandiflora. The deciduous magnolia doesn't need as much water, but they do like their water. Most people put magnolias on the wrong side. You never put a magnolia on the south or west side of a landscape because it's too hot for them. They like to be on the north or east side. So if you do have a magnolia and it's on the south or west side, you're going to have to water that thing like crazy to keep it healthy and alive. If it's east and north, less amounts of water. Magnolias do not like that heat unless they're getting plenty amounts of water.
And are you talking seasonally? Like obviously more in the summer, right? Not as
More
much
in the
in the.
summer. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they're not native to this area, and so they're big water users.
All
It's quiet
right,
out there, man.
great. Well, thank you so much. I don't see any further questions in the chat, and we're about 5 minutes to time, so we can go ahead and call it. But we really appreciate your attendance. And again, if you want to get out and visit some gardens, the Bringing Back the Natives Garden Tour is happening in May, and there's a couple gardens in Fremont, but it's really all over the East Bay. And you can go and talk to the homeowners that did the renovations and look at cool plants you might want to adapt into your landscape. And it's really specific to native plants too. So those are much more sturdy in the droughts and different changing climates. So
And don't you have a demonstration garden down at your headquarters?
we do. Yeah, let me I'll put our email in the chat. If anyone has any additional questions or follow-up, we'll be sure to get back to you. But thank you so much again, and I hope you have a great night. Thanks, Frank. Take care.
Thank you. Be talking to you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.